Governing is this, that it is absolutely essential. The knowledge must include dimensional parameters of government to attain peace and harmony in society. We lack that. That knowledge must then be accepted in ways that will create and provide a future for every child. The critical cause that destroys peace and harmony in society is one of three basic things. 1. The environment is destroyed and life or death looms large for each member or many members or simply a few members who must now decide if this is me or you that is going to die, then I choose, most likely me. The result is the need for governing, to share the responsibilities, basically is what that is. 2. The resources are gone, which means there's no job here. There's no future here, and we must leave or die. Immigration results, and when large masses of people must move, whether their own fault or not, it results in an army. Can't pay, must take then. Again, it's me or you that causes that. 3. Reality states some have much more, and some have far too little to be happy. Therefrom, anger erupts against the rich. They respond by hiring or creating an army to control the poor, and the poor fester inside and find hate to comfort themselves in revenge. One day a mob will form, finding any cause will do. As they seek their revenge, destruction follows for all. Within these three basic realities of human existence are the fundamentals which must be addressed to conceive of a society at peace. Peace means I recognize that anger will not improve my life. Therefore I seek justice. Harmony means being accepted for who I am. I understand as best a human can be that I am not, nor need not fear, to be lonely anymore. A society that finds happiness is no cause for fear exists here. We are free to experience and express ourselves without finding ways to disguise what is my own truth. So let's search the basics of environmental, that means nature, climate, chain of food supply, and all the things which humanity does not do for itself, as are balanced, disciplined, and orderly, just because they're here. We didn't intervene. Thereby we have no need to fear. In contrast to that, environmental destruction is the opposite, or more distinctly, we interfered. All the things which life on this earth has provided without cost to us have suddenly disappeared, making this earth far less habitable, even unfriendly to us. Society sees this as chaos, and it then erupts in fear. Men destroy environments to be rich, and win the game called pride, which means I am the winner here. That brings us to resource, which means by using what men can manipulate, harvest, or control, society finds its work by using anything that has value to other men. I'll do this for you if you do that for me. It is work in nature, ocean, or environment to trade for something they want for themselves or something others will pay them for or trade them for. When those resources are gone, they literally have nothing left to trade except war. Thereby forced, so they believe, to kill. The rich are a different seasoning to one or both of the above. To become rich, it is absolutely essential to make the others poor. You can't be rich without slaves. Rich means you get more, people do more for you than you do for them. The richer you are, the poorer you have made many others. Even so, when men are without boundaries, the rich say no to those, to the majority. The rest then attack resources without end, or the poor cannot control themselves and destroy more relentlessly in an effort to be the very rich. It doesn't work. Therefore they destroy, along with their lives, those who simply demand to live in which, while hoping for peace and love. Or more simply, the rich are actually necessary as life has been, because if you don't have someone controlling the resources are attacked and they disappear. And then all you have left is war. So, or if I let up, those who are not trying to be rich face a trouble. If I let up on my drive to get all I can get, these others are going to take it from me or consume me with it. and I will fail to find what I need to survive. So the rich are then they are a necessary evil in today's world. They are a fact created by the extreme want in men and the women who push them. Women do push men, and they do respond. The rich are, as history proves, the lesser of two evils. Let the few control the resources and environment, or the many will simply destroy them all and end up in war anyway. Quicker, but nonetheless results in various forms of mayhem, which include nearly all crime, depressions, and environmental catastrophes, as the rich try mercilessly to become richer. Or, I am the superior one, is what they want to do. Where leadership has proven to be nothing more than criminals trying to take everything so they can be rich, the law itself is revoked and armies arise to get or to take what I declare as mine, without reprieve, as in the end of war. If it just keeps continuing, bloodshed becomes a way of life, which means agriculture, or any and all means to make a living by providing food and water for yourself and trading that in a society, has been abandoned or killed by the armies. That intensifies the war to take what I need for myself and to get more. I need more. There's less to get. That functionally does not require a woman or a child, so they are discarded. That functionally leaves the women and children unprotected in an area of men who are angry for sex. That means rape. That means women must try to create food for themselves and their children, want to or not, or they die of starvation. And then, of course, the men come to steal it, because we got to eat too, or we die. Anything that can be stolen is stolen, because nothing less will buy weapons for war. These are at the forefront of what must be dealt with in order to create a society at peace, a society that can be governed. The failure to attain enough food, work, and water for the people themselves, and society collapses upon itself. So where that is in jeopardy, groups of the rich who govern hire more and more policing, granting just keep the poor and the discontent away from us, and we won't care how you do that. As society lessens, because resource and environmental destruction cause fear, those who have something to lose, we call them the middle class, fear those who have nothing to fear, nothing to lose, just like the rich do. The divide between policing, the courts, and the poor grows deeper. The rich man tries and does control the courtroom, and he hires and particularly promotes only those who do what he wants to have done. That further corrupts government. Leaders then build armies to contain the violence. That gives the poor a job and some money, which eases pressure on society. However, armies are expensive, and they make society bankrupt sooner or later. So then leaders must incur debt. When that fails, they begin to counterfeit, hiding inflation in asset creation, such as America does. That is nothing more than a lie. Or they use inflation directly, and the numbers just keep adding up until you get truckloads full. That will end abruptly because society learns they have been made into slaves. We were not paid. The money is worthless. The currency of this nation has no value. That's what happens. This is at the forefront of what must be dealt with in order to create a society with harmony. This is not harmony. You have to do better. A society that can be governed exists only because it is happy and not afraid. The dimensional parameter of a working government means what must the structure used to control this piece of earth is to keep humanity from making war on itself or this earth, making the future impossible. Or quite simply, once people have destroyed their environment with only the money matters, which is what they do today, or with overpopulation, nature can't take this, or, just environmental destruction, that produces the decision that the only thing we have left is either a war or immigration. Therefore, the search for outer boundaries is extremely simple. Don't destroy the environment, what nature gave us for this piece of earth, its natural process and means of creating the chains of life called food or water. That then is the structure of government, protecting the sustained boundary between life and death, which causes the failure called war. The reality of international protection is then don't allow nations to destroy their environment, not even by overpopulation, which means they must war or immigrate to survive, bringing their troubles, their decisions across boundary lines to inflict the same on others. This is a world that is full of people, which means each group must literally take care of itself. To emphasize that reality, consider this. If we take the current population of 8 billion people and put them into 1 million individuals to a group, then there are 8,000 groups, each with 1 million individuals strong. It's a lot, isn't it? Ultimately, it is likely that nations should be divided into 1 million individuals each. More is harder to control with international policing. Extreme groups think of themselves as above the law. So let's consider resource destruction now. As is, I want more than this place can provide for me, which means I hate that. The fight for anything that can produce $1 is constant and harsh then, particularly as competition climbs into its current reality. Too many people. Only the rich get richer, and the poor get nothing when the competition is too extreme. The more desperate men get to have something they want, the more destructive they get to everything or anything that you perceive to stand in their way, such as a future. The common refrain is, future be damned. Children have to take care of themselves. I need mine today. So they take every last thing, every last one, if it's conceived as worth a penny. And if they have been a bit successful, then they throw resources away. Majority do, just to prove they can, producing garbage instead of a future shared for life. Child be assassinated instead of protected. Foundation of government, as is to protect the resources, then is to quell the uprising and insurgency of the rich against all the rest. They must be held back by the construction of laws and a government controlled by all the people, not just a few, regardless of the method used to employ that few. That is done with the Constitution, the written instructions of we the people, which force our employees by swear you will obey our government. Our government is the Constitution. In these instructions, in this Constitution, we govern ourselves. Failure means we penalize you based upon what you have or have not done. The rich or those in charge will always be in charge of governments because they can and will seek to do that with money. Nonetheless, an employee is never the owner. Rather, he or she is told what they can and will do for we the people who employ them. The Constitution must then be known as the law and protected clearly and deliberately to keep that Constitution clean and forthright. No misunderstandings, no uncertainty. Whosoever makes the law, few laws are necessary, controls and owns the government of this particular society. The critical earnings of government, the future we create, are then how do we keep the poor from destroying their own jobs and environment. If the rich are controlled, the answer revolves around two distinct additions to government by constitutional law. We need to amend the Constitution, creating limited capitalism, as is we the people by our vote decide just how rich any person, business, etc. can be in this society. We are the owners here. We make the laws. We enforce those laws on each one. Simple as that. More importantly, if the wealthy refuse to share, we the people can reduce their income by recurrent vote. In other words, it's just not once. You vote on what the income level should be every 10 years or so, maybe less. The second is true democracy rather than the construct that has been taken away in America. Democracy by depending upon others. That's what that is. To vote for someone to vote for me is no longer necessary. We do have everything we need to vote on the laws and the realities of government for ourselves. But be careful, liars, traitors, and thieves are everywhere due to the university diploma. They all believe, I should be worth $1 billion. And when they don't get it, the plotting and planning to deceive and get that money begins. To let those who are not going to pay for what they chose by voting to make me pay is not democracy. Describing for themselves what they want at my expense is not democracy. Therefore, stopping those raiders in the rebellion against order and discipline, as is consistent with the poor, who are intent upon taking something rather than earning something for themselves, is required. You will know where you stand in terms of money. Limited capitalism makes a difference. The primary development of order in an economy is currency control. That means to achieve order, currency numbers shall be tied directly to the population count, so much per person. If the number does not matter, society will adjust. That means to achieve economic discipline, international currency shall also be decided upon resources bargained for. Not numbers, but realities of exchange. Where numbers must be used, the exchange will be valued in gold or other types of physical evidence that you did not lie to me. The government, called a true government therefrom, refines the structure of society by hiring employees who then investigate for truth, refine and define by examination what our reality is, and report or defend the laws we the people did make for ourselves. No more lawmakers in government except for us. Once the law is done, you will learn it in schools. Therefore, democracy insists no more words, not more words, as law that then can accomplish that reality. Once you know what the law is, you can defend yourself. The courts refine questions and present the decision of what needs to change to the people themselves for their vote. The judge is judged for each proceeding, as is the lawyers as well. They are both graded for justice and constitutional adherence. The jury decides, is this the society we paid for? That's the jury's job. It's nothing else. It's to decide, is this the society we paid for? The failure for the judge and lawyer to uphold your grade, which means the jury says, yes, this is the society we intended to make, means you will be replaced forever if you were a judge. You don't get to come back if you fail us. Policing is individuals who say, yes, I will stop those who are believed to be doing what society by law says you shall not. That does mean a police officer must face repeatedly offenders who want to do what they are doing and commonly resist being forced to change. They can institute violence and hatred, which then forces an army of policing and more brutal means. Every army discards the individual as expendable. It's the price of an army. Consequently, we lose our grasp on policing as a society. When violence and hatred become embedded in the response, our laws can be broken, then by both sides. Hatred is, you made me do this to myself. You did this to me. You are the cause. Therefore, you are my enemy for life. True or not makes no difference. Hate discards heart and chooses revenge. Violence is, I have measured you and found you worthless to me. Therefore, I can do anything that pleases me with the trash. That's you. So the question of policing and enforcement, thereby justice and security in society, is entirely dependent upon whosoever is willing to hate or is willing to judge and condemn. The righteous are critically important to this effect of society on its citizens, as the righteous are constantly trying to make rules to control those other damn people, as in everyone but me. The result is, rules destroy freedom. Freedom destroyed ends happiness. Without happiness or freedom or opportunity, hate grows. And authority born out of manipulation and controls that cannot be justified by truth gain violence and control society by deception. A rule is not a law. Law means to govern us all equally. Same for all. Rather, a rule is to govern you instead of me. And that, of course, makes enemies, causes harm, fails life and society. So choose rules very carefully and make them few, or they will harm, not help. We end with education for the masses. Which means if you are not giving me something I can and will use in my life, options to do other things in my future, then you teach me nothing, and simply control, manipulate, tempt, and prove I have been judged less than these others. So society and education must do better. The reason better is not done is very simple. Those in control, in fact, don't want more competition. You don't want more competition for whatever you want either. Neither do they. So they keep competition out by educating with only a few matter for college purposes. And they keep the rest out of the job market as long as possible. And they destroy the potential of the masses any way they can, because we can't all be rich. That's the simple truth. Rich means that I have more people working for me, doing for me whatever I want them to do, than I have to work for and do for others. Or it means that I get all the resources and they get very few. In other words, you simply can't be rich unless you make other people poor. The more people you can make poor, the richer you can be. And there are very few exceptions, 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 are